Welcome to a new episode of my Dear Kitchen in Helsinki podcast. My guest today is my designer and researcher friend Saara-Maria Kauppi, aka Sassu, and she participates in the interview from Norway. Sassu and I studied at the same time in the Creative Sustainability Master Program at Aalto University. She studied insect consumption and design as her master's thesis, and afterwards, she continued her research on the topic as a PhD candidate at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. In the interview, we talked about research on insect rearing and consumption in Western society, current regulations in the EU and Finland, the business side and entrepreneurs, and how design affects this discussion. Let us know your opinions on insect consumption as a comment on social media or the platform you listen to. As always, special thanks to my dear friend Ufuk Evcimen for the sound editing. Hi Sassu, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Greetings from Norway.
Oh, that's great. Well, first of all, a very brief explanation why I called you Sassu. Your name is Saara-Maria Kauppi, but we always called you Sassu, so I'm going to continue calling that during the whole interview. Now, this topic is first of all, thanks for accepting this interview among all of your busy schedule. But also, I want to say this topic is a bit of an uneasy topic for me to talk about because I have a very bad insect phobia. And even talking about this in this context is hard for me, but I'll try not to get totally weirded out. Now, before we start moving into the deeper discussion, can you introduce yourself a little, your academic background, research interests, but also your designer as a practitioner background before all this?
Yes. Yeah, right. So thanks for inviting me. This is really, really nice and exciting to talk about this research now. At the moment, I'm finalizing my dissertation. So I'm writing the kappa, we call it. And I'm quite at the end. I hope to be finished really soon, but it will take time. This is like a long marathon, and I'm like on the last kilometers of the long marathon. Mm-hmm. So we know each other from Aalto University. So that's my background. I studied there creative sustainability, and that's where the sustainability desire to work with sustainability comes from. I trained as a graphic designer and packaging designer as my bachelor, and then I've been also really interested in information design, and also this kind of like sustainable living and how to kind of change the world to better. That's really a big topic for me.
Okay. So then, very briefly, what attracted you to this topic specifically, and why and how did you start working on it?
Okay, this is this is interesting. It has really practical background because I was working already in a consultancy that moment, and I was still lacking my master thesis. And then one of my colleagues in the consultancy said that let's go for a lunch. I'm meeting an old study mate, and I went on a lunch with them. And then this person was actually working in an insect startup, and he was fascinated about insects. And I was thinking, okay, this is really good topic because I'm lacking my master thesis, and if we were to eat insects, can you actually show an insect on the packaging? And basically that became the research question in my master thesis. And then I ended up moving to Seinäjoki, and I ended up living with this startup for a short while, or actually half a year. And we were growing insects in our kitchen, and it was interesting times, and these guys were trying to convert these local farmers to farm insects, and I was writing my master thesis while living with them, and super interesting times and fun to look back to.
Yeah, our listeners, of course, do not know, but my face gets all kinds of shapes when you say things like, "Oh, we were living with insects, growing insects in our kitchen." Yeah. But okay, so let's go into the topic. I want to start with the more general aspects, maybe related also more about your research findings in general. But let's start with what are the benefits and justifications of insect eating, and what exactly is it substituting?
Yeah. So the benefits, of course, we can look at the nutritional benefits and so on, but let's start with the justification. So basically, what the industry is saying, this is the basic claim, is that it's more environmental to eat insects than it is to eat beef, pork, chicken, because of insects, how they convert feed to meat. So they are really fast doing that. So like basically they use all the feed to grow themselves. You can grow them vertically,
Mm-hmm.
and they use less water, basically less land. And they also they reproduce really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this kind of like quick machine of making animal protein.
Okay.
So that is the basic justification, is efficiency. They are efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And the main claim is that they are substituting meat. That is at least that is where it starts from.
Mm-hmm.
They are tackling the meat consumption.
Mm-hmm.
The benefits also to eat them, there are a lot of like essential, good essential micro and macronutrients.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on the species, you have to look at the species separately. Some of them are more high in protein, some of them are more high in fat, depending on the species again.
Mm-hmm.
So that is that there is the nutritional benefits, then there is this environmental thinking behind, plus then maybe a bit lower level, there are political economic reasons to promote insects.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by political reasons?
For instance, the whole movement came from UN. So like this is something that UN said, that maybe we could look at insects. Mm-hmm. And also there has been so politics are involved because of EU regulations and so on. So different countries, they took a different stance. We go there maybe in a second, but there is also like politics involved in that sense, that whether each food authority in each country look at this as something that that country should have or shouldn't have. Yeah.
Okay. So it's in the title already, but I just want to remind that we are talking about this insect eating, consumption, rearing in Western society. So here's a question then: what are consumers' concerns about eating insects in Western society? And you can talk about it individually or as a more society-wise, and also how is it different than the rest of the world? I mean, why are we now talking about it in the context of Western society after all?
Yeah. So let's start with cultural aspects. And if you look at places where this insect eating has been a cultural habit, for instance, Mexico or Thailand, so the story is a bit different. People are used to seeing insects and maybe used to eat them also, but that's also individual there. So there are individual concerns. It's like you said yourself, that you have you dislike insects, and you have like really strong aversion towards them. Mm-hmm. Then of course there are some individuals who are really like they are experimental, as we call them, experimental taste oriented. So like they would like to try all these new kinds of food. And so there are people also with food neophobia. They just want to stick with the food they know, and so there are individual differences, and that also affects how you how you kind of perceive insects and maybe what kind of food product would be good for you. And socially, of course, we learn from peers. So we are affected with whom we are living with. For instance, if you're living with people who dislike insects, you're maybe less likely to cook them every day if they're just like they don't want to see it or taste it or even smell it. So that is affecting. So it's like it's a bigger hub of things that that affect on how we perceive insects in the West.
Well, I must also tell that I think it was in 2019, I was in a gastronomy fair here in Helsinki, and I did taste cricket, but it was an unrecognizable piece of a cricket, so that I knew that it was cricket that I was tasting, but I don't know, maybe it was a leg or something. And so I felt really proud of myself going a little bit further than what of my phobia. And then I bought, from this I got a little bit of brave, and I bought granola, and then I came home and I opened the package and I saw more recognizable pieces of crickets. So I packed it back and gave it to a friend. But so that was my personal story so far with insects eating. But for example, we talked about animal protein that is substituting, and we know a lot about animals feeling pain and well-being. But what about insect well-being and insects feeling pain? What do we know about that? And then how does this affect insect eating from the ethical point of view?
Yeah, so we know something that they do sense something, but can we say something about the consciousness of insects? That's a bit difficult to say anything about it. So yeah, they do sense pain. That is something we know. I think I read they are also they have a version for hot, so depends on the species again. But we know that there is something going on, that they do sense something. But also, like, this is us looking at these small insects from an upper level. We're like, what do they feel and what do they know? And it's really difficult topic to also make studies about on. But so from the ethical aspect, there is like the association of insects as a platform of insects for food and feed. They've made like a guideline how to rear insects ethically, and so you should also, if you are farming them, you should respect these 5 animal freedoms. So like freedom express normal behavior, freedom of hunger and thirst, discomfort, fear and distress. So these things apply also to insects. And then I know that in the Netherlands, they are currently trying to release this kind of label of like kind of like that these ethical concerns have been taken care of rearing insects. But I think for me interesting on this ethical discussion is to look at us people and how do we perceive them. And we tend to kind of like rank animals in a way that like some of them are more closer to us, like mammals. We respect them more, and it's we give them a kind of like they're more conscious and we respect them more. And then we look at insects that are kind of in between plants and animals in a way. Kind of they are like lesser animals. And I think this is also an interesting topic to look at ourselves, how we perceive insects.
Yeah, true. Now we are currently producing, of course, there are startups and there are already some countries going more forward with this. But let's say insect rearing and consumption gains traction in Western society and has to be mass produced. What do you think will be the challenges then of this insect mass production? You can talk about in general, in conception, in consumer perception wise, and so on.
So yeah, so like for me at least, this it's been interesting topic, this insect eating and insect farming. When you see these small startups doing their thing and they're growing insects in like small spaces, but indeed there is the aim also to get insects mass produced and then have these like big machinery and automized factories of growing insects, and that's the kind of like the science fiction aspect of insect eating, I think. So there is also, yeah, I think that's something that the consumers, if they know about, they might think about a bit more. Is it like a happy insects from a small farm or from a big factory? But so like the concerns for like if this gets traction, and it has gotten, is like the automation of the production, because it's been very in hand labor intense so far. So there is some like technological innovations that should be in place. And also, of course, like if let's say that there is diseases or pests like mites coming to the factory, it can swipe out the whole population. So there are like these kinds of threads. Also, the bigger you get, the more like there are risks to have these kinds of things happening, and the whole population can collapse in the factory. Also, this is to do with growing insects also where you place them. If you place them in a farm and nearby there is a field that use pesticides, so this can also affect these farms, these like outside pesticides coming in. And that's interesting and also like can be challenging. And insects fleeing, that is a threat.
That's a threat for me.
Yeah.
Fleeing in Helsinki.
Exactly. So like if this depends what insects you are growing, but if this foreign species, if they flee and cause like ecological problems, this is like a concern. I think if you ask the people who are actually farming, they probably have tackled it somehow. So these are interesting questions when it gets big.
Yeah.
And then there are like these big companies like Bühler is investing to make insects big, and that's like technology for rearing. Basically, it's there are pictures on the internet, like fully automized factories, and it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I want to come to a bit more, as you said, maybe more political discussions and so on in the EU, specifically in the EU, and then in Finland. So what is the EU's current position on insect eating from the point of regulations, as much as you know, and also by countries, like which European countries are more open, which are not that open, and why, and so on?
Okay, so now the Food Authority of EU has approved mealworms as food. So that is the current situation now, and likely this year there will be other insects that are being approved. But before that, there was this regulations from 1997, and different countries were interpreting this regulation differently. And so there was some like differences between countries for the last year as they were looking at it at this regulation. So whether they were permissive or whether they were like, okay, we interpret this law that insects are not suitable for human food. And the countries that were more permissive were Finland, Denmark, Netherlands, UK, Belgium. Then later came Estonia, Sweden, Czech Republic. But yeah, so like soon, I think this year, there will be more insect species that are allowed in whole Europe.
Yeah, now I checked, I want to come to Finland on this, and I checked Finnish Food Authority's website, and it says that it's legal to consume farmed whole insects, and there's a list of bunch of different species that includes different kinds of crickets and worms and things like that. So how and when did insect eating become legal in Finland? For me, it feels like it became all of a sudden. I didn't really follow it, so maybe you can talk more about it. And what is the current situation in Finland, as if you know, not just what it says in the Food Authority website, but in the society? Do you know anything about how much it is consumed in Finland, and how are the businesses doing in Finland right now? If you have any information on that.
Yeah. So let's start with when. I think it was 2017 when it became approved. So like the interesting thing was that Finland actually changed the interpretation. So there was a lot of lobbying by the companies who were growing insects and people who were practicing this entomophagy. And
can you, for the listeners, tell what entomophagy means?
Entomophagy is basically insect eating. Humans eating insects. So because of this lobbying, Finland changed the regulation, and that became quite sudden. And I was also involved designing this cricket jar, which was kind of like exactly tackling that aspect. It was called kitchen decoration and sold in ruohonjuuri. So that was kind of interesting way. But yeah, it happened quite suddenly, and then I think there was some sort of hype for some time, and maybe now it has gone down a little bit. Maybe the products were not that good. I don't know what was the cause of that. I think in Muji, you can still find in Helsinki different kinds of insects. The problem is that I haven't been to Finland because of COVID for a while. So I can't say exactly where can you find the insects, but it's allowed. And regarding the last discussion on the regulation, if you were to produce insect-based food whatsoever, it's better to look at the National Food Authority. What do they say about it on the regulations? So they should have the recent knowledge.
I shop a lot, not just for my customers, but also for myself most of the time, from Heinon Tukku, the wholesale market. And I think at some point I saw this cricket granola being sold there, and I was very surprised. But other than that, I haven't really seen so much, but also I'm not really looking for it. So maybe my brain is kind of avoiding the products. But I remember the hype that you talked about. It was especially more about, like a show, like different chefs coming and preparing crickets and in different festivals and so on, not just food festivals, but I even saw in some other non-food related festivals that this kind of, especially Entocube, making this kind of shows. So maybe it was just watching that, which I again avoided, was more of the hype. But I don't know about the products myself, how much they were accepted by the society. But let's talk about these entrepreneurs then, the business side, which you call from this entomophagy entrepreneurs. Now, what are their aims in general? I mean, do they want to make it part of a regular diet? Do they want to have this as an exotic food? I guess what I'm trying to find out is, we talked about these general aspects, justifications, benefits, substitution, and so on. And then there's the business aspect. How and where do they meet exactly?
Yeah, that's a good question. Very good. So I think the aim for many entrepreneurs is to kind of like make this mainstream, make this insect eating mainstream. But my critical view on that is that you need to look at the products that they're making. How are they doing it? So if they are selling lollipops with the cricket inside, is that changing the meat consumption? Yeah. So I think that's how you can look at it. Like there is the idea that you have to have like some sort of a gate product that will take you to another level. But I don't know about that. Is that working so well? So I think if you are tackling the meat consumption, maybe it should be plain insects or something that you use as meat.
Okay.
So I think there are many different kinds of products. Some of them are more like they have like these nutritional claims, and then these products are kind of like they have a benefit if you consume them, or they are extra protein, or they are like burgers or patties or meat balls, some sort. So the benefits and justification, where do they meet? Yeah, exactly. I think the justifications, you have to look at the product itself.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when I think of these entrepreneurs, they are trying to change people's dietary behaviors. I mean, and it's an important challenge. I mean, because people in Western society either will have phobia like me or have disgust against this. But when I think of this changing dietary behavior, I think of another group of food entrepreneurs, which are vegan food entrepreneurs. Well, granted, people are, I think, not so much disgusted by plants or anything. So it's a bit of a different, maybe, dietary behavior change. But there are many vegan products that are trying to imitate the meat taste and texture and so on. And there are quite many, and I think there are many people actually now consuming those things. So do you know anything about these entrepreneurs sharing any strategies with these vegan entrepreneurs or products, or learning anything from them, because they're both trying to change something?
Well, I guess the main point for both of these, if you're making burgers or meatballs or such, is that you're trying to tackle the meat consumption through the Western kind of diet. So you're introducing this similar sort of food that we already know. And this is the similarity between these two, like vegan food producers, vegan meat food producers, and entrepreneurs. So kind of like not introducing culturally new food, but culturally similar food that we know already. And that is the key idea when it comes to burgers and nuggets and such. sometimes I think like, is that the way to go? Like because I don't eat nuggets or burgers and this kind of like very processed food. So I'm also thinking like, could we like be a bit more, could we imagine a bit better in a way what the future food could be? Also, they are riding on the novelty factor, which is similar to both. So it's hip and cool, and you want to try this new food, and they call it future food, and that is also how you name the food is also the same. Then maybe something that is different, because insect this kinds of like, if you look at insect burgers, they do have animal meat in them, so there is B12, for instance, that might not be so much in those plant-based food.
Yeah. And I know that from several research, especially about these vegan products, that there are many vegan people who do not actually want vegan food to be associated in name by these animal products, like vegan steak, vegan burger, vegan, I don't know, sausage. They actually don't want ethically to be associated, even if they consume them or not. They don't want a vegan product to be associated. So that's a whole different discussion, but I just wanted to also mention that. But let's come to design now. Now, where do you situate design within the whole question of insect consumption?
Yeah, that's a broad topic, but yeah. Well, I try to think of design like as kind of like an integrated idea of design. So there is the product, and there's the packaging, and there's the aim, and understanding the consumer, who is it targeted to. So I think that's how I look at design. It's like more kind of thorough thinking of the product from scratch till the consumer. And I had this like 3 different examples in one article, that I had this like a example of like how you can produce insects locally at home. This is the hive. So like you could have this like hyper local food production, where you can put your kitchen scraps and get some mealworms on your salad to get like a little bit of protein there. So that is like, then you kind of develop this sort of understanding, where does the food come from when you grow it yourself, and how does it work. Then there's packaging. I can talk about that as well, and that's also to target it to certain consumers.
But also about the packaging design part, I would like you to, if you can explain first of all, how packaging design affects food consumption in general for people who are not familiar with this kind of behavioral change and packaging design, and then move on to how it is done in insect eating.
Do you have certain products that you shop from the supermarket, Asli? Like usually?
I have, yes, there's feta that I always buy.
And what is the color of the feta on the packaging?
There's a lot of blue and red.
Yeah. Okay. yeah. But you basically recognize what you want from the supermarket, right?
Yeah.
And this changes because you're from Turkey. So when you go to Turkish supermarket, the products, the dairy products might look a bit different there. Yeah, and this is like, it's very cultural how the packaging design is, like how people are used to seeing certain products, and it's interesting with dairy, for instance, because we are so used to like, how does the milk look like? And if you go to another country, then the milk packaging is different.
Yeah.
And then you might buy, like I bought this cultured milk in Norway because I thought it was milk, but it it was cultured milk. And Yeah. So my point coming back to insects is that they really don't have like such strong conventions on how they should look like and how packaging should look like. And so like packaging is told to be in a supermarket this silent salesman. So sort of like it's shouting like take me. And so it is for recognizing what the product is, how to use it, for instance, and this you can do, like you can also with packaging design you can decide what kind of price range it is. Like is it high end or is it kind of like very cheap? Is it organic? Is it local?
In one of your papers that I read, there was this study you made with some master students where they designed many different products, and then you could read also what their aim was. Were they aiming high quality product or more playful and things? And I'm going to put your ResearchGate link to. Is it open to be downloaded for people?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would really recommend these papers because especially that one was very fun and interesting to read. All these different visual examples. Yeah, but please continue.
Yeah. So basically, there are many strategies, and it's about what do you want the food to represent and to whom. So this is something to do what you can do with packaging and packaging design.
Do you think it works better when you put the photo or the photo or illustration of a cricket on the package, or if you talk about it but not put the cricket?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, this depends what kind of food you have. Like if you try to hide the insect, for instance, and and if you're aiming for with the product, let's say that you have like hidden insects in a insect powder in let's say burger, then maybe it could be just textural. But if you are aiming for these kinds of let's say you have a party and you want to make this kind of product that is aimed for experimental use in a ways, then you can kind of show insects. So it depends really what is the aim, the strategy, what you want to do with the product.
Yeah. Now, what other, you talked a little bit about some product that you do at home and cultivate insects to put on your salad if you want. But are there any other design interventions or strategies that you can give us an example of which were interesting and or effective?
Yeah. Well, if we go back to what I think is interesting as a strategy, I think just to make people excited about, I think that works until to some extent, and then I think the nutritional benefits is good to promote, because like basically the environmental aspects of insects, it is there, but you should also promote how it tastes like and what's the fun part of it. So I think that is something, and then now I'm looking at I also like these kinds of strategies that aim for cultural eating. So sort of like Mexican chapulines or I don't know, deep fried crickets from Thailand or something like that. So that is interesting.
Cricket kebabs.
Sorry,
cricket kebabs, which is something that I just thought of.
Yeah. And one last strategy that I find interesting is to and this is something what the vegan movement is also doing, this empowering consumer is like saying that you are the change maker, and by buying this product, you're part of this movement. And that is something that I find interesting. I think it's very topical in today's consumer culture.
True. Yeah. So after years of work on this topic, what is your position on insect eating? And what do you think is the future of insect rearing, eating, consumption in, again, Western society?
So I started with as an advocate for insect eating. When I started this PhD, I was like, hell yeah, like we're gonna change the world. And then I was fortunate to go to the Netherlands and visit places, and also went to UK and met these entrepreneurs. And but during this journey of this PhD, I realized that I actually need to be a researcher, and I cannot just like be promoting insect eating. So I've been changing into more a researcher type now, and I think that's healthy. And it's nice also because I'm paid by the university, so I don't have to promote if I don't want to. So so it's a really nice position to be. So I can look from both ends. So I think this is an interesting topic, but it has some challenges.
Did you do you consume more insects than before in your daily life, or is it a research topic for you separately?
Yeah, I used to organize these bug parties, for instance, so that like I had people coming over, and then it was like a costume party, people dressing up as different kinds of insects. Yeah, that was fun. I did it a few times, and then I tried different types of recipes with the crickets. I don't consume them daily basis, and I do have some insects in my kitchen, but I've been kind of saving them because it's difficult to get from Norway more insects. But yeah, I don't consume them daily basis. No, I'm also becoming slightly more vegan. The more, now that the time passes.
Okay, I understand. But do you think that it's going to be mass produced and consumed at some point in the near future or in somewhat future?
Yeah, I don't. This is difficult to say. It's funny because this has been spoken as future food last 5 years, and like, when is the future then? Yeah. if it was future food last 5 years, it's kind of when it's going to happen. Yeah, I guess I think at least for now, for me, it's really difficult to see it being like becoming very mainstream. But I think it could be on a side. But it's difficult to say about the future.
Yeah.
It depends on like if you get like good products and good reasons to eat them.
So these are all my questions. Do you have any final comments, any final words?
Yeah, I think for me, thanks for inviting me to this podcast. It was really interesting. I think this has been like really interesting journey, and there are several people who have kind of like taken the similar sort of journey with insects. They have started a company or they moved to another country to pursue this topic, and it has created a lot of interesting opportunities, which I kind of like I'm part of. So that's something. And I think it is good to try insects, and maybe also kind of think about the relationship with insects. Maybe that's something that this topic could could kind of like come about and could promote. Maybe next time you see an insect, you can, or like if you buy a cricket, you can look it a bit more closer.
I mean, let's see. I've been fighting with this phobia since I was 12, and I'm 41 now. So it's been quite a journey for me. And what I love about Finland is the amount of insects that I can see, which is really few. So of course, which might change with now the change in climate and yeah. So I hope not so many insects move here. Well, thanks for this interview, and it was really fun, and I hope I could limit my my weirdness about the topic in the interview. But I'm going to put the several links in the description of the YouTube version of this podcast, but the podcast is also on iTunes and Spotify. So for listeners who cannot really see that description in those platforms, can you give where can they find you? For example, your website, or where would you prefer?
Yeah, so the website is. Well, maybe it's easier to find me from ResearchGate. So I think you can just like find Saara-Maria Kauppi from ResearchGate, and then Googling me, I think you will get to my portfolio, which is out there as well. And there you can see like the projects I've been working on with this academic career and also before. And yeah, I think those are the two main parts where you can find me.
Thank you, and good luck with writing your dissertation, and later on with the presentation I will be following, and good luck with everything. And well, thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.